Dreams buried by betrayal. Samuel had always been a dreamer, but his dreams weren't of the idle sort. They were vivid, detailed, and backed by an unshakable determination. Growing up in the small town of Namdi, he had watched countless people settle into the monotony of their lives, never daring to reach for anything beyond what was in front of them. But Samuel was different. He worked tirelessly, often juggling multiple jobs while attending school, his mind fixed on a single goal: to leave Nigeria and build a better life abroad. His evenings were spent studying scholarships, improving his technical skills, and networking online. His family wasn't wealthy, but they were proud of his tenacity. His mother, a widow who sold produce in the market, always encouraged him. "Samuel," she would say, "you are our hope. You will achieve what none of us could." Her words fueled him, giving him the strength to endure the setbacks and rejections that came with his journey. But on one fateful day, all the struggles seemed worth it. An email from the prestigious Global Scholars Fellowship arrived, confirming his acceptance into a fully funded master's program in Canada. His heart raced as he read the words, "Congratulations." That evening he paced his small room, trying to decide how to share the news. His closest friends, Joseph, David, and Kemi, had been his support system. They deserved to know first. After all, they had celebrated his small victories and comforted him during his failures. Or so he thought. The following weekend, Samuel invited his friends over. His house was modest, with walls painted in faded yellow and furniture that had seen better days, but it was filled with warmth. He prepared a feast of jollof rice, fried plantains, and chicken, an expense he could barely afford but deemed necessary for the occasion. His friends arrived one by one, their familiar laughter filling the space. Kemi, the only woman in the group, was the first to notice the excitement in Samuel's demeanor. "What's the occasion?" she asked, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. "Just wait," Samuel replied, unable to suppress his grin. Once they were all seated, Samuel raised his glass of water. "I want to thank you all for your support over the years," he began. "I couldn't have made it this far without you." David leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Made it where, exactly?" Samuel reached into his pocket and pulled out a printed copy of the email. "I got the scholarship," he announced. "I'm going to Canada." The room erupted with a mix of cheers and gasps. Kemi jumped up, pulling Samuel into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you," she exclaimed, her voice thick with emotion. David clapped him on the back, nodding. "You've worked hard for this. You deserve it." Joseph, however, remained seated, his smile frozen on his face. He clapped slowly, his eyes narrowing as he studied Samuel. "Canada, huh?" he said, forcing a chuckle. "That's impressive." But inside, Joseph's heart burned with envy. While the others celebrated, he excused himself to the bathroom, where he stared at his reflection in the mirror, his mind racing. "Why him?" he muttered. "What makes him so special?" In the days following Samuel's announcement, Joseph couldn't shake the bitterness growing in his heart. He and Samuel had grown up together, shared the same struggles, and faced the same obstacles. Yet Samuel was the one leaving, while Joseph felt stuck in a cycle of mediocrity. He began avoiding Samuel, making excuses to skip their usual hangouts. When David and Kemi noticed his absence, they brushed it off, assuming he was busy. But Joseph wasn't busy, he was brooding. One evening he sat in his dimly lit room, staring at a bottle of beer. The jealousy inside him had morphed into something darker. He didn't just resent Samuel, he wanted to see him fail. A plan began to form in his mind. It wasn't fully developed yet, but the thought of sabotaging Samuel's success gave him a twisted sense of satisfaction. A week before Samuel's departure, Joseph approached him with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Samuel," he said, "we can't let you leave without a proper send-off. let me host a farewell party for you." Samuel hesitated. He was never one for big gatherings, but Joseph insisted. "Come on," Joseph urged. "It'll be small, just a few friends, good food, and music. A chance to celebrate everything you've achieved." Touched by the gesture, Samuel agreed. On the day of the party, Joseph prepared meticulously. He cooked some dishes himself and brought a bottle of expensive wine, claiming it was a gift for Samuel. But hidden in the folds of his bag was a small vial containing a colorless, tasteless poison he had purchased from a dubious source. As the party began, Samuel was surrounded by laughter and warmth. Kemi and David teased him about life in Canada, while Joseph played the perfect host, pouring drinks and serving food with a smile. When it was time for the toast, Joseph handed Samuel a glass of wine he had poured himself. "To Samuel," he said, raising his own glass, "may your dreams take you to the stars." Everyone echoed the sentiment, clinking glasses. Samuel, unaware of the malice in Joseph's heart, took a sip. At first, Samuel felt fine. The wine was slightly bitter, but he assumed it was just his unfamiliarity with expensive alcohol. He laughed and chatted with his friends, feeling a warmth in his chest from their support. But soon, a strange sensation crept over him. His stomach churned and his vision blurred. He tried to stand, but his legs wobbled beneath him. "Are you okay?" Kemi asked, noticing his pale face. I don't feel," Samuel stammered before collapsing. The room erupted in panic. Kemi knelt beside him, shaking him desperately. "Samuel, wake up!" David fumbled with his phone, dialing for an ambulance. Meanwhile, Joseph stood frozen, his heart pounding. He hadn't expected it to happen so quickly, or so dramatically. By the time the paramedics arrived, Samuel was gone. The silence in the hospital waiting room was suffocating. Kemi sat hunched over, her hands trembling, tears streaming down her face. David paced the room, his face pale and etched with disbelief. The doctor's words kept replaying in their minds. "We're sorry, he didn't make it." Samuel, their friend and beacon of hope, was gone. Joseph stood in the corner, his head bowed. Unlike the others, his grief wasn't pure. It was laced with guilt and fear. The poison had worked faster than he had anticipated. He hadn't planned for Samuel to die, just to be delayed, maybe bedridden long enough to miss his flight. But now the unthinkable had happened. David broke the silence. "This doesn't make sense. He was fine earlier. What could have happened?" Kemi looked up, her voice shaky. "The doctors said it might have been something he ate or drank. But Samuel was always careful." Joseph felt the walls closing in. He quickly interjected. "It was probably some freak reaction. Maybe he was allergic to something. Let's not jump to conclusions." David gave him a sharp look. "Allergic? To what? He's never had allergies before." Before the conversation could continue, a nurse entered the room. "The police will want to speak to you all," she said softly. "Standard procedure." Joseph's heart skipped a beat. Police? He hadn't accounted for this. He clenched his fists, trying to calm the panic rising in his chest. The police interviewed everyone who had been at the party. The questions were routine at first: what Samuel ate, what he drank, whether he'd been feeling ill earlier. Joseph maintained his composure, sticking to his story. "It was just a normal party," he said, forcing a calm tone. "We were celebrating his scholarship. He seemed fine until he suddenly collapsed." Kemi, however, couldn't shake her unease. Something about the night didn't sit right with her. She remembered the wine Joseph had poured for Samuel. She remembered the odd way Joseph had been acting lately, distant, almost resentful. "Did anyone else drink from that wine bottle?" one of the officers asked. Joseph froze. "No," he said quickly. "That bottle was a gift for Samuel. He was the only one who drank it." The officer nodded, scribbling notes. We'll need to take samples of the food and drinks for testing. And we'll need the guest list. Joseph's stomach churned. The poison vial had been discarded, but what if traces were still in the wine? What if they found something? As days passed, the town mourned Samuel's death. His funeral was a somber affair, with friends and family paying their respects. Kemi stood by Samuel's grieving mother, who clutched a photo of her son sobbing uncontrollably. Joseph kept his distance, watching the funeral from the back. The guilt was unbearable, but he couldn't risk drawing attention to himself. Later, Kemi and David sat together, reflecting on the events leading to Samuel's death. "I can't stop thinking about that wine," Kemi said. "Joseph brought it, he poured it, and he was acting strange that night." David frowned. "Are you saying Joseph had something to do with it?" "I don't know," Kemi admitted. "But something feels off. We need to find out." David wasn't convinced. Joseph wouldn't hurt Samuel. They were like brothers. But Kemi couldn't let it go. She decided to dig deeper. Joseph's guilt began to manifest in paranoia. He barely slept, haunted by visions of Samuel's face, cold, lifeless, accusing. At night he heard whispers in his room. "Why, Joseph?" the voice would say. "Why did you do it?" He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination, but the hallucinations grew worse. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of his vision. Objects in his home shifted positions when he wasn't looking. He became a prisoner of his own mind. Meanwhile, the police investigation yielded results. Traces of poison were found in the wine bottle Joseph had brought. The evidence pointed directly to him. When the officers arrived at Joseph's house with a warrant, he broke down. "I didn't mean to kill him," he sobbed as they handcuffed him. I just wanted him to stay. I couldn't let him leave us behind." His confession sent shockwaves through the town. Samuel's friends and family were devastated. Kemi felt vindicated but also heartbroken. The betrayal cut deep. Even in custody, Joseph couldn't escape his torment. In the dark confines of his cell, the visions of Samuel grew more vivid. He saw Samuel standing outside the bars, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. "You took everything from me," the figure whispered. "Now I'll take everything from you." Joseph screamed, drawing the attention of the guards. But when they checked on him, there was no one there. The haunting wasn't confined to Joseph. David, who had dismissed Kemi's concerns, began experiencing nightmares. In his dreams, Samuel would appear, his voice echoing with accusation. "You stood by and did nothing," Samuel said. "You let this happen." Kemi too felt Samuel's presence, but hers was different. Instead of anger, there was sorrow. In her dreams, Samuel would sit beside her, silent but sad, as if urging her to make things right. Joseph's confession led to a swift trial. He was sentenced to life in prison, but his punishment didn't end there. His mental state deteriorated rapidly. By the time he was transferred to a psychiatric facility, he was a shell of his former self. David's life also spiraled out of control. Consumed by guilt, he turned to alcohol, losing his job and alienating his family. One night, he was found dead in his apartment, an empty bottle of whiskey by his side. The cause of death was listed as alcohol poisoning, but Kemi couldn't help but wonder if Samuel's spirit had played a role. Kemi, determined to honor Samuel's memory, approached his family. She confessed everything she knew, from Joseph's jealousy to her own suspicions. Samuel's mother wept, but thanked Kemi for her honesty. Years later, Samuel's story became a cautionary tale in Namdi town. His mother established a scholarship in his name, ensuring that other ambitious young people could pursue their dreams without fear of betrayal. Kemi went on to become a community advocate, speaking out against envy and promoting unity. Though she carried the weight of Samuel's loss, she found solace in her efforts to prevent similar tragedies. As for Joseph, he spent the rest of his days tormented by the memory of his actions. His once bright future had been snuffed out by his own hand, a testament to the destructive power of jealousy. In the end, Samuel's legacy lived on, a beacon of hope and a reminder that no dream should ever be buried by betrayal. Samuel's tragic story reminds us of the devastating effects of envy and betrayal. A life filled with promise was cut short by the jealousy of those he trusted most. But in the end, the truth came to light, and those responsible faced the consequences. This story is a powerful lesson. When we allow jealousy to consume us, it not only destroys others, but also ruins our own lives. Samuel's legacy lives on, serving as both a warning and an inspiration. Never let anyone dim your light, and never let negativity take root in your heart. If you found this story impactful, please like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping tales that teach, inspire, and make us reflect on life's deeper truths. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay true to your dreams and cherish those who genuinely support you.